All right, so the debt gets, like you said, it's all these different things going on. The government has to pay for all these things going on in the country, right? So now the debt is kind of where it is. Who is owed that money? The debt that Puerto Rico currently has right now. Who's owed that debt?
Yeah, and that's an important question because I think some people have this misconception that Puerto Rico owes this money to the United States, meaning like to the U.S. government, and that's not the case. Like, the vast majority of the debt is both before it started getting restructured and what's still outstanding debt is is owned by basically private investors. Some of it is just kind of individuals who, they technically might own some of Puerto Rico's debt just from like the index funds or their 401k or these bond, these funds that, you're like Fidelity and all these places you might be able to invest in just as part of your regular investments. And it's not like an individual chose to buy a Puerto Rico municipal bond. It's just part of what was kind of in the package of these funds that you get invested into. But there are tens of billions of it that are also owned by hedge funds, by what are sometimes called vulture funds, because
Mm.
they like vultures kind of swoop up when um the this when things are dying almost, right? In
Right.
this case, when Puerto Rico's financial situation got so bad and these junks got like, or these bonds got junk rated, so they were able to buy them up real cheap, and now they've been fighting in court to try to get a bunch of the to really try to make a profit on it. So a lot of the big fights that are happening over the debt right now is these hedge funds, these vulture funds, organizations, companies that manage, you know, tens, hundreds of billions of dollars, who still owe some of Puerto Rico's debt and are basically trying to, squeeze as much money as they can out of it.
Wow. Okay, so the debt, I believe at one point was around like $85 billion, right? Or 90 billion or something like that. For a country being so small in a population, I think what is it, 3 million people in Puerto Rico.
Hmm.
What is the result of being that much in debt for an island so small with a population so small? What have been some of the results?
Yeah, I mean, I think the a couple of things. One of the big results is that, when you get to the point where you can't pay your debts, you're sort of locked out of the market, right? It's like having bad credit as a person. You're not going to be able to
Mm,
take out more loans. You're not going to be able to borrow more money, and so that incredibly limits Puerto Rico's ability to issue more debt, to get some of the money that it needs to fund the government, to run basic services, and sometimes, but really the biggest thing that's happened is because of what, as I mentioned, the United States did to help, with very big air quotes, Puerto Rico get a handle on this debt situation, which is they passed this law Promesa in 2016, signed into law by President Obama, and it creates a financial oversight board for Puerto Rico, which Puerto Ricans often call La Junta, and it's basically a series of seven bureaucrats, really appointed by the President of the United States, who are put in charge of Puerto Rico's debt restructuring process. But the law gives that board such extraordinary power that it sort of puts it in charge of all of Puerto Rico's finances. And what that
essentially,
board,
they're more powerful than the Puerto Rican government itself, right?
oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. To the point that whenever Puerto Rico's elected government, elected legislature passes a law now, they have to basically write a memo to the board and say like, "Hey, is this law okay?"
Wow.
And the board, who nobody elected, who is just seven people appointed by the president, gets to decide if they think the law is going to be good for Puerto Rico's finances or budget. Then fine. If they think it's not good or doesn't meet their fiscal plan, then they can just block the law's implementation. Um, and the elected governor of Puerto Rico can't do anything about it. So these seven people who nobody elected are more powerful, as you said, than the government of the people elected by Puerto Rico in a supposed act of democracy. Um,
Mm.
and these are folks who ideologically believe in austerity, believe that the way to right Puerto Rico's finances is to, cut pensions, cut funding for public education, for other public services. So what they've done for the last almost 10 years now is, this massive austerity program in Puerto Rico to, basically cut the government's budget so that there can be money to pay off these bondholders. Yes, they have restructured some of the debt and, saved Puerto Rico some money in that sense. That's what they were put there to do. It's what would have happened, ideally in a better way through a kind of Chapter 9 bankruptcy. Um, but the effects on Puerto Rico have been disastrous. They're behind the privatization of the electric grid and Luma, and the disaster that's been for Puerto Rico. And you look at everything that's crumbling on the island, from education, from healthcare, all these key services and institutions. Um, a lot of that can be traced back to this kind of austerity program imposed by this federally appointed board.
Wow.